I had no idea that you could cut a niche into a market. Turns out it's a massive business, isn't it? Skateboarding, you know.
You literally turned into a business freelancer pretty much overnight.
It was all through Instagram. I barely even had like an email address. I think I had to create one because of this stuff coming in, you know.
That is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's actually why I animated it, because I was like, oh my God, someone's done it. Thrasher magazine posted it on their Instagram account and it just went nuts from there. I could just be doing this. This is exactly what I want to be doing. I can die happy now. That's bucket list ticked. He's seen something I've created. I want to explore the idea of burnout. Whatever your creative outlet is, whatever you're doing, do not.
Hey Jack.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm very good. I've been looking forward to this, all week. Can't wait.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. How's things, man? What are you up to today?
All afternoon, actually, I'm storyboarding, so it's a day off from actually animating and getting the cameras out and everything. So
when you work, do you work all from home, or is there a studio that you go to?
I'm in my house, and then this is where like I edit everything, and then I've actually got a little small little studio up in town in the centre of the city here. I used to work at a music venue, and they do me a nice little deal on the studio up there. So
that's good, man.
It's cool, but it does mean that if I'm animating late into like Friday or Saturday night, sometimes the whole building's like shaking with the music. So when you're doing a stop motion rig, it's not the best thing.
We're skateboarders ourselves, so you know we could geek out for a long time on skateboarding history. And
yeah, I was gonna say we might just run out of time. Just try and reel that in.
It would be great to get started with like a bit about your background.
So I guess I've been animating since I was at university, really. I studied film at university, but I didn't take the animation module, which is like...
I've read that.
Looking back now, I'm like, what was I thinking? One of my housemates did the animation module, and I kind of went into his room one day, and he was like, just doing this little project. So I watched it, I was like, I could just be doing this. This is exactly what I want to be doing. I went off and just got like a little mini DV camera from like the local shop, plugged it to my computer and just experimented. The first thing where like I actually realized, oh, this could be a career, was I started making like little whiteboard animations. And obviously at the time that was becoming a bit of a thing with like RSA animates and stuff, this way of explaining complex ideas through a whiteboard animation. And then I started working for Exeter University, which is the university from where I'm from, making animations for like their online courses. And then I started making skateboarding animations in my spare time just for a bit of fun. And I posted like my first ever one.
Which was who?
Oh, it was Jaws. Do you know that guy who like jumps down all the
25 Leon set? That is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like Ali Boulala bust his ass on that, literally.
My ass is in so much pain.
That was insane.
Weirdly, that's actually why I animated it, because I kind of fell out of love with skateboarding. I got into other things, and it wasn't until someone posted that clip, and obviously I'd watched Ali Boulala do it growing up, so I was like, oh my God, someone's done it. So I was like, I've got to do something with this. I've got to animate it in some way. So I just did it, just in my spare time in my living room, and Thrasher magazine posted it on their Instagram account, and I say it just went nuts from there. Like,
oh man,
started getting skateboarding brands contacting me and saying, oh, could you just create something for this, for that? Brands that I absolutely love and adore and grew up watching and wearing their shirts and stuff.
Yeah, man.
I had no idea that you could cut a niche into a market and working in such a what I thought at the time was a small sort of area of work. Turns out, obviously, it's a massive business, isn't it? Skateboarding, of course, worldwide, huge hobby. Well, huge sport now.
Yeah.
And then actually recently, in the last couple of years, I've actually gone back to making a lot of educational animations. So I've now kind of got this really nice split, 50-50.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's kind of the perfect setup now. So I'm really enjoying how it's all working, really.
Brilliant. Chris Ray, the Pen Pals projects. How did that project come about, and did you know Chris before?
Yeah, I'd worked with Chris a bunch of times for DC Shoes. He was like the main filmer for DC Shoes. I know he still does a lot of stuff with them, and he got me involved in a few projects. He just said, see my stuff online, wanted to see if we could do something. But it went down well. So obviously we then went on and we did a bunch of other stuff. And I always really, really enjoyed those projects and working with Chris. And for years, I'd had this idea of Pen Pals, this idea of doing a project with someone the other side of the world, and how I could basically create something a little bit more longer form with loads of different ideas. At the end of the day, I live in like the countryside in England. I don't know many skateboarders. I'm too old to be going and hanging around with like some 16-year-olds at the park and filming them skateboard. I'm not, not Larry Clark and not filming kids.
Yeah.
I need someone who has been filming skateboarding for a long time, has access to film skateboarders now, or wants to send me like older archive stuff. I just dropped Chris an email and was like, look, this is going to be so hard to explain it on paper. It is kind of an idea that I would love to just create one to show you what I'm talking about. So he said, look, I've just done this one with John Gardner, this video with John Gardner, who's brilliant skateboarder, really creative. And he just sent me the footage and was like, all right, do what you want to do. Bring it back to me and let's talk. And so I just made that first one as a bit of a pilot, I guess you'd call it. And he really enjoyed it. And we decided to go ahead and just do it as a bit of a passion project that we do in our spare time. And we still work together on client work as well. But Pen Pals is the kind of thing that we just do, just on the side. That's why it takes so long between releases, because it's always just like in the evenings, at the weekends,
A lot of work into it, of course, as well. And
it's great fun though. I mean, that's the cool thing about working with Chris is some of the skateboarders that he's worked with. For the third episode, he was like, oh, let's do Sean Molto and Mike Moe. And I was like, not only I love Molto as well, but Mike Moe was like, he's got to be in my top 5 like videos that I've watched the most in my life. So for him to send footage of Mike Moe for me to like print out and play around with and paint over and rip up, it was just a dream to work with that.
Have you got any messages from Mike Moe and Sean that has reached out and says, man, that was so cool?
Yes, everyone that I've done an episode for I've kind of spoken to afterwards, and I don't know if Chris tells them before we do it, so I don't know if it's just this lovely surprise where they just get a video in their inbox in the morning or whatever, but they've loved it. It's been fantastic to talk to them. I actually ended up sending it to Tony Hawk because I was like, I gotta do it. Like I can't not, I sent it to him and I was like, look, you're the reason I got into skateboarding. Like playing your computer game, I went out and got a skateboard like literally the next week, and now I work in skateboarding, and it's all because of you. I've made this new thing. It's called Pen Pals. I know you're into like creativity within skateboarding, so here it is. And then he sent me this amazing message back and was this is amazing. I love it. Please send me like future episodes. I'd love to keep up with it. Thanks for all the kind words and stuff. And I can die happy now. That's bucket list ticked. He's seen something I've created. So
have you thought about doing the legendary 900 as an animation?
Are you kidding me? Yeah,
well, it's funny you should say it because a couple of months ago, a couple of guys that I've worked with before, they've started their company called Story Skateboarding. Their launch kind of project was they did a 900 deck that was like a special edition anniversary of the 900, and they worked with Tony on like the design, and it's all autographed by him, and there's a certain amount of them that they sold. Because I'd worked with them before, they actually got me to do the animation for the advert for that board. So I got to animate the 900, and then I animated the art on the board and stuff, and it was this little advert, and
that's incredible,
come true. If I never work for another skateboarding job, I'll be happy because I did that. So fantastic.
Oh, congrats, man! That's incredible. Coming back to the Pen Pals, you've collaborated with artists Jess Holland and Poppy Star.
Yeah.
How did that come about? And I know one image in particular, I remember that the hand painted background.
I guess to give the context around Pen Pals to start with is, I know that earlier I said I wake up every day and I'm like, I love this job, etc. I did actually get a little bit sort of burnt out, a little bit fed up with the fact that like you just constantly creating an advert for a product. Like at the end of the day, that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 6-7 years or whatever. So I wanted to create something that had a little bit more behind it, a little bit leaning into art, I guess, more than it being a job kind of thing. I also wanted every episode to showcase a bunch of artists. So whether that was artists I've met before, so Jess is actually a really good friend of mine from here in Exeter. We've kind of done a few arty bits together, and I love her style. I love her paintings, so I wanted to get her involved. So that's where that came from. And then Poppy, like, I stumbled across her work just through the Instagram machine of it popping up on my feed. And I was like, I love this style. I want to get it in there. So I just shot her a message and was like, do you want to do a clip for this video? It's just a complete personal project. It's not a job for anyone. So, you know, it's purely if you want to do it. And she jumped to the chance. And when she sent me the clip, I mean, oh my God, like, it just blew me away. I was like, fantastic, exactly what I wanted. So each episode, I wanted to have one or two artists in there, whether they wanted to do like a painting, an animated clip, etc. Just to highlight the people that are out there doing these kind of things and really play on this Pen Pals idea of it being like kind of across the whole world, people are coming together to create these videos. So that's where that idea came from.
As it grows, what have you got any new intentions to kind of expand, or is it just a case of do a series and just experiment with other artists?
I don't know, to be honest. We'll you know, we'll have a call and work out what we want to do in the next one. I mean, we both love the skateboarding world, but at the same time, whether we do one on surfing or, you know, on any of the other sports that we're all involved with, we could do that kind of thing, snowboarding, etc. I've got a million more ideas that I want to do with it, and I'd love to explore those with more footage that Chris sends me. There's a couple of other sort of aspects of it that I'm really keen to explore. So each episode has a theme that I'm trying to explore. So the first episode the theme was actually just the general introducing the idea of Pen Pals and how mad it is that we are now in this place where we don't have to like go and live in LA or go and live in London to do things. Like, you know, these creatives can be all over the world. The second I wanted to explore the idea of burnout, which I think is for creatives is just, you know, something that we all deal with, we all talk about, and sometimes it's hard to ignore. I think whatever your creative outlet is, whether it's illustrations, whether it's animations, videographer, whatever you're doing, I think it's hard especially with social media at the moment, not to get burnout just from the amount you have to create, the constant treadmill of stuff coming through that you have to do. It's hard work. It is, and it takes a toll on your stuff. I know you did an episode with, it was a couple of episodes ago, Kayo, was it?
Oh yeah, Kayo Lung.
And she was talking about sort of mental health in the creative industry, and it's a massive part of it, burnout. I think it's just the way we mix our passion with work. It for all intents and purposes from the outside world, it's like, oh, you're doing what you love for money. That's the perfect setup. But actually, it means that you kind of end up doing it into the evenings. You end up doing it at the weekend. You just do it because you would be doing it anyway. And then the third one was about the originality versus copying ideas, and the idea that we've all got these amazing creatives that we follow, and whether people are annoyed when they see other people's stuff that's similar to theirs or not. I'm definitely in the school of thought that we're all just trying to make something fun and something that's original to ourselves. It can get you down if you think that there's something out there that's too similar to your work.
Yeah, it'd be a shame to kind of have this idea and get excited about doing something, you know, thinking I'm going to start this idea on Monday, and you know, you're scrolling through on Saturday and think, oh, someone else has already done it. It would be a shame to then put you off.
And especially with Instagram, it's not your website, it's not your show reel. Instagram for some people is just, you know, just putting up stuff that you're just playing around with.
Yeah, being able to post something in this day and age on a social media platform in something you know that you've done in your spare time, like that's just incredible in itself. Because talking about skateboarding, prior to, I'd say, the Berrics, when it was first set up, if you're looking to watch content with skateboarding, you're getting a VHS tape or a DVD. I mean, I remember being like 12 years old. My parents bought me my first skate video, Tilt Mode Army's Man Down, that features like Caswell Berry, Louis Barletta, Jerry Eshoo.
Jerry Eshoo's like probably one of my favourite skateboarders of all time.
The Berrics come along, and you can go onto a website and watch little clips of skateboarders doing stuff at a skate park. This new platform to watch content was incredible. It's kind of changed the game, and with the addition of social media, you know, you can post stuff and tag somebody.
Honestly, there's parallels with people, creatives like animators, illustrators, artists on social media as well. The amount of stuff that's going on there every single day, it's like, it's hard not to feel overwhelmed with it sometimes.
This is fine.
Do not compare yourself to everyone on social media. You will only find failure if you do that, because you will always find someone who does something that you think is better than yours online. And then even the people that you look at and think, oh my God, they're the best at what they do. They'll be looking at someone else online and thinking, I wish my look was that look, you know, or they're working for clients that I wish I worked for. I was spending, you know, weeks, months at home just trying to think up some new way of making an animation that no one has seen before in skateboarding, like trying out all these different things. And I just stumbled across this like really simple way of doing things where I was just doing it old school, literally just had like a kind of light box, drawing on like lined paper, just doing some like really sketchy rotoscope. Like we're talking so quick. And then it was only a couple of days later I started getting like quite a few people were like commenting like, oh, you're totally ripping off this person.
Oh, really?
Oh, you're ripping off this person. Obviously I was like quite down about that. Really thought I'd like stepped on someone's toes. And one of the creators that everyone was saying was like, oh, you're totally ripping off Donovan Strain. And obviously his animations were something that a huge generation of skateboarders really hold dear to them. They watched it every week come out. And I sent him a DM and I was like, look, you know, we've never spoken before. I'm really sorry. I'm going to be honest. I hadn't heard of your work before. I just had no idea. And I'm sorry that if you thought that, you know, he'd obviously seen the stuff because people were like tagging him and stuff. And he sent back the nicest message and he was like, don't worry, totally get it. Like creatives come at things from entirely different angles. You know, you might have come at from this angle and ended up with a similar thing to me. And he was like, I love the creative world that we all come at things and can arrive at the same place, but from different places. I think as long as you're honest and just say like, I hadn't seen that, or like, oh, I'd seen that, but actually I'm doing something new with it. I'm slightly tweaking it. It's inspiration. I did an advert for Primitive Skateboards a while ago, and I actually came to them with the idea and said like, this is totally a play on this old animation advert that I loved growing up. And it was this old Guinness Hands advert that was, it just blew me away when I saw it on TV when I was, you know, younger. And I was like, I just want to do a little nod to it. So there's a few little bits in the video where I do the same movement with my hand just to say like, this is, you know, this is a play on that. With all creatives that are coming into this world or any other world of art, everyone should just play around with a million different techniques to get their stuff. And yes, along that path, you might do something that someone's going to jump on and say, already been done before. But until you've tried those things, that's where you find your side. And I do hope through speaking to all these other creatives, I hope that I have got to a point where like I found my side of things through just experimenting, and I would recommend that to anyone else is just play around with these things and just try everything.
Going back to posting that video and then getting picked up by brands, what was the next kind of project after that one that got posted, and what brand was it that approached you? That
was a ridiculous story from my point of view in terms of like Thrasher posted it. It was going crazy. I was getting like message requests just from you know, everyday skaters just saying, oh, could you do this with my clip, etc. And I was like, kind of having to reply. I said, you know, maybe, but I'm getting like loads of these. I'll try and work it out in the next week or whatever. And then I got one, and I totally didn't realize at the time that it was like S Skateboards. Again, it was like lost in these messages, and I went into it, and I just totally thought it was just, I don't know, just some bloke or some girl just messaging me just saying, oh, could you make a clip for me? I've then got on to realise that it was like Don Brown, who's this fantastic skateboarder. But I just totally didn't realise it when it came in. So I kind of almost fobbed them off like, oh, you know, maybe kind of thing. And then I reread it and I was like, oh my God, like I grew up, like I loved your shoes, like I wore your t-shirts, everything. So I ended up doing a few animations for them just for some shoes. And I think that kind of always brings up that question of should you ever work for free as a freelancer, etc. All I'll say is, you know, I did that just for a few pairs of shoes or whatever from them, and it launched my career. Like I went on and worked for loads of amazing companies all around the world, made a career out of it, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done that one for S. So I find it very hard to say to people like, always do it for money. I get that some people think that it waters it down and like you should be worth a certain amount. I completely understand the argument, but I think there are some times when you weigh it up, there can be a reason for it.
You literally turned into a early on business freelancer pretty much overnight or a week, would you say, or something like that?
Some people will ask the question, how to get into, etc. At that time, it was all through Instagram. I had barely even had like an email address. I think I had to create one because of this stuff coming in, you know. And I find it funny that like when Thrasher posted it, people were coming onto my page probably expecting like loads of skateboarding content. It was just pictures of me and like a cat and a dog, you know, just like me and my family, you know. So it's this stupid thing of like totally being thrown in and realizing very quickly, if I want to do this properly, I need to get this stuff set up.
You started out doing it for fun because you're a massive fan of skateboarding and brands like that. So when somebody messages you that you look up to and respect, that in itself is like, thank you so much for the recognition.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's exactly how it came about.
Talking about clients, when they send you footage, do they just let you full on trust with yourself, Jack?
That is, case by case, really. It totally depends on the project. Sometimes, you know, they'll come to us and be like, we've got a lookbook for our new range of clothes. We want to display it in some kind of creative way. And I might create, you know, 2 or 3 storyboards for them and say, like, these are my first thoughts, and we'll go back and forth and get that storyboard, you know, greenlit on both sides, whether they're happy with it and I'm happy with it. And quite often that will involve, the storyboard that I do will involve them then having to do a shoot to fit with that.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to do like a dummy shoot over here. So, yeah, the amount of times I've set my camera up and I had to do like really raw kind of step-by-step.
Like a previs. Almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a few adverts for like Primitive for their lookbooks. So I'll be there like changing my jumper and being like, you need to do this movement one bit at a time, then you need to remove your hat. And then they'll get a model in or one of their skaters and they'll have to do the whole thing over there and send it over. And then I've got to make sure that it works. So there was like hundreds of printouts of this model. He's actually an incredible skateboarder. And yeah, I was like literally like taking the hat off him, put another hat on him, and it all interacts. Those kind of things that just comes from talking to him about what they're trying to achieve with it, and then coming up with some ideas. You know, and that'll go back and forth a bunch of times before we're all happy with it. But in terms of ideas, looking at the artists you've had on your show, I'm under no illusions that like I'm probably quite a good example of someone who doesn't have the technical talent in terms of like, you know, 3D Blender or all those kind of incredible tools that you guys use, and the stuff that you create is amazing. I know that I've got like a little bit of a niche thing going with my technique, but what I do have a slightly stronger side is the ideas. So people will come to me not just because like I know that I can create animation, but actually because I can take something that they want to show and do it in a creative way. So half of it actually is coming up with an idea of how we can show something interesting.
You know, when you see your work, it is like they refer to it, the Jack Hyde magic. But it really is a unique style. You know, looking back to that first clip that you did, I guess the equipment has advanced. What's it like compared to what you was using when you first did that Jaws 25 set?
Oh my God. It's chalk and cheese. It's two whole different, it's not even two worlds, it's two galaxies of difference, you know. Like now I've got like a proper setup with a rig, with my camera set up, with continuous lights, all that stuff that stops little things like the flicker between frames that you quite often see if you're watching someone doing a bit more of a DIY look. But you don't need those for mucking about with stuff at the start. And I mean, my first setup was an old mini DV camera plugged into my computer with a bit of free software. I just had lamps, like literally the same lamps that you'd have by your side of your bed kind of thing, just about 10 of them around the setup. And I watched them now and I was like, yeah, no wonder they're like blown out. Like there's just flicker the whole time. So now, luckily, I've got quite a nice setup in the studio, and it's, I guess, what you'd call a professional setup.
Nice. Well, are you doing it the proper way now?
I'm doing it the proper way. And yeah, but it's mad because stop motion obviously is like the old school way of doing it. A lot of the gear is still the old school way of doing it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is stuff that people don't want. So like my lens on my camera it's this beautiful lens, but no one wants it. It's a lens from like 30 years ago. I got it off eBay for like a tenner because the modern lenses don't lend themselves too well to certain parts of stop motion because of certain, things they do. The technology in there actually, although it helps with all other aspects of photography,
right.
For stop motion, you want all the control you can possibly have. And actually, the old school cameras sometimes are the best for that because you can just set it and it will never change. It won't adapt between each photo. It will just stay exactly how you want. The first ever animation I did was an advert from my friend's photography. So Owen Richards, he's this incredibly talented photographer. He's gone on to, takes photos for some, biggest magazines in the, in the world and stuff. And I just made a little advert for his website, just showed a few photos. That's a prime example of if you use the wrong stuff, it affects it. So I had card was coming in from different angles with different things written on them and different photos on them. And obviously they were all different colours. And when they would come across, there'd be a certain colour. But as soon as they took up the whole screen, my camera would completely auto-adjust. 'Cause it all had all auto settings on it. And it would go from pink to red, as it was moving across the page.
Colour correcting in post, frame by frame.
Exactly. And that's why now you just need cameras that don't do any of that stuff. You set it manually and then just away you go. I guess the biggest inspiration for getting into animation after that was this incredible animation by, I think his name is Christopher Strom, I want to say his name is. It's this incredible animation set to a music track, and it's just him with his hands doing amazing doodles and everything's changing into different animals and stuff. That was probably the biggest inspiration where I was like, oh, I could do whiteboard stuff. I think it wasn't until I started doing the skateboard stuff that I realized that if I printed the footage, I could then manipulate it, I could cut bits out, I could paint over it, and I could actually experiment with that. I think throughout the entire time I've been animating, all of it has just been experimenting with different ways of doing it.
I love the skateboarder coming up. There's a rail into a bank, and then you sort of peel back the rail, put him in, and then he skates. And
I mean that's that'll just be sitting there for hours, just working out how the hell can I do it where actually I pop him in behind it, and just sitting there in Photoshop and trying to get it to look proper. And then getting the old scissors out and it being actually old school and just cutting up stuff on your desk.
Touching back on mental health and burnout and things, you've actually experienced it yourself. What was that experience like for you? How did you kind of overcome it, and what kind of difficulties did you face getting through that time?
It's a massive issue, and it's a massive hurdle to overcome. It can be really, really easy just to be I'm not doing this anymore. I can't deal with this anymore. I can't think about it 24/7, animate 24/7, need a break, etc. And a lot of people take a break and then come back to it, or take a break and don't come back to it, or they just push through. There's all these different people have different approaches to it. Myself, I started Pen Pals because I wanted to remember that it's fun. The amount of times that I've been doing animations over the last couple of years for clients, and I've woken up and thought oh God, this, it's a job, this is work. And then forgetting that if you didn't pay me for it, I'd be doing it anyway. I'd be doing that, those jobs. So I started Pen Pals to remember why I liked animating, and it's been a huge help. So now when I jump on a client job, I think, of course this is fun. I'll enjoy the animation side of it. Of course, it can't all be absolutely perfect, but I think if you can go back to any way that you in the past have enjoyed animating, certainly for me, it was going back to playing around with techniques in my spare time and being actually, I really, really enjoy just making stuff. So I think, again, just a last little bit sort of tip for people who get into it is don't be afraid to get a setup that works for you. If that means that you're working 50% as a part-time somewhere, doing something that's not exactly what you're showing on your online world or whatever, your online persona, don't be afraid that that's your setup. Everyone has a different way that they want to work in life. And I've now got a setup that I really like. I work part-time at university making animations that if I post them online, you'd probably think they're really boring and not exciting because you're used to seeing the skateboard and stuff, but they're exciting because it's a different side of it. And then I get to do my freelance and enjoy that. So it's perfect.
That's a great balance, man. That's a really, and like you say, it's all what works for you, isn't it? What works for one person might not work for another.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, man. This has been so fun. And again, we could talk for a lot longer, but I just want to say thanks for the time that we've spent. And
it's been brilliant. I've been looking forward to it. It's been just as fun as I thought it would be.
Great.
So thank you for your time. If you guys are ever down in Devon, give me a shout and show you around the local area.
Appreciate it. And if ever for some reason you're up in the Wolverhampton area, do the same as well.
I've been up there a few times. I'll give you a shout. Fantastic. Excellent.
Please, man. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Oh, pleasure. Have a great rest of your day.
And you. Thank you. See you later.
Take care, man.
Bye-bye.